Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Ironworker Gaming Channel. I am Ironworker814, and thank you for joining me for another Destiny 2 PvP viewer-requested weapon review, where we go over pros, cons, stats, damage numbers, and how to obtain the weapon. In this video, the Holy Pepsi Man has asked us to look at a gun that has broken the game so many times that I've lost count. That would be the infamous Telesto. If you have a weapon that you'd like to see me review for PvP, leave this video a like, make sure you're subbed to the Ironworker Gaming channel, and drop your weapon in the comments below. I've been trying to crank through these weapon reviews as efficiently as possible because today, on June 9th, we have a new season to cover, so expect to see some videos featuring seasonal content sprinkled into the mix also. But the Telesto, if you've been playing Destiny 2 right along, I'm sure you can remember all the exploits and bugs that Telesto has been at the heart of. And for a period of time, Telesto was king of the Crucible. I mean, that thing was running rampant in there. And then that sound it made, that dreaded sound, oh, it was all you heard. But in January of 2019, Bungie finally knocked Telesto down a peg, causing weapon usage to start to dwindle and making the way for the rise of the Erentil. But in March of 2020, all fusion rifles got a blanket rework, and most of them took a pretty good hit to their effective range. But could this mean that it's Telesto's time to shine once again in the Crucible? We're going to attempt to answer that question after we take a brief look at how to obtain this weapon. So if you're looking to acquire the Telesto and you don't know how to get it, just keep your fingers and toes crossed because it is an RNG world drop. It can be obtained by picking up any exotic engram that drops on the ground, or it can drop from an activity that has exotic rewards in its loot pool. The Nightfall Ordeal is always a pretty good bet if you're looking to farm exotics. You can always keep an eye on Xur and see if he ends up selling in one of these weeks too. The Telesto does have a catalyst that has a chance to drop from the bonus chest in the Eater of Worlds raid lair. I do not have this catalyst yet, but it will give you increased ammo reserves. If you want to know how to get this chest solo, go watch one of Esoteric's videos. He has a video done for every single class. It's a great resource if you're looking for the Telesto catalyst. But with all that being said, let's get into the stats and damage numbers. Alright, Telesto is an exotic void fusion rifle with a charge time of 780 and 4 rounds in the magazine. This puts Telesto into the precision frame archetype of fusion rifles, so it inherently has a more vertical recoil pattern. As far as the stats go, handling, reload, and stability are all really solid. Impact seems to be deceptively high, and we are lacking a little bit in the range department. As far as range goes, it doesn't matter for Telesto, but it does matter at the same time. I'll explain further in a little bit here. The intrinsic trait is Unplanned Reprieve. Fusion projectiles attach and detonate with a delayed void blast. Harbinger's Pulse is Telesto's exotic perk. Multi-kills with this weapon immediately reload your equipped kinetic and energy weapon from reserves. If that sounds kind of confusing, it's because it is. This language seems to be a hangover from when Telesto was a heavy weapon. But essentially that multi-kill will reload your kinetic weapon and Telesto will auto-reload itself. Okay, into the damage numbers. Telesto will fire 7 projectiles per burst just like every other fusion rifle, but each projectile is going to do 1 point of impact damage, but 39 points of explosive damage. Therefore, the projectiles fired from Telesto have no damage fall off, but this means you will need to land 5 out of the 7 projectiles from a single burst to outright down a Guardian. This is why I said earlier that range doesn't matter, but it does. Telesto doesn't need the range stat to extend its damage floor or ceiling, but range does affect bullet magnetism and overall accuracy of a weapon. Just something to keep in mind going forward in this review. And with not much else to touch on here, let's dive into the pros. Alright, we might as well start off with that lack of damage fall off. If you caught my Merciless video, you probably remember me talking about how fusion rifles have range drop off starting at 17 meters and that floors at 24 meters and blah 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 blah. Well, Telesto does not care. One projectile landed is going to do 40 damage, period. That means if RNG decides to help you out and gives you a nice tight projectile spread, Telesto has the ability to kill at stupid long ranges. And next, since the bulk of the damage comes from the explosion, Telesto packs great multi-kill potential. And even if the collateral damage from the explosion isn't quite enough to outright down a second target, it leaves them very susceptible to an easy cleanup shot. So this is a nice bonus in team shot situations, especially at longer ranges. The reload on Telesto is also pretty quick, and the stability is quite high, which makes the recoil of the gun hardly noticeable, and it feels really good when firing from the hip. And when you pair that with a relatively quicker charge time when compared to other Crucible preferred fusion rifles, Telesto just feels like a really snappy and agile weapon. And lastly, let's get into all the different things you can do with Telesto's projectiles. If you didn't know, these missed projectiles will stick to hard surfaces with proximity detonation, and they linger for about 8 to 10 seconds. Now this is useful in so many different ways. First off, these missed projectiles can accidentally damage or even kill an enemy player. There were numerous times when testing this weapon that I outright missed my target, and then a few seconds later, someone's name popped up on the kill feed because they wandered into my projectiles and died. You could get real creative here and start setting traps for the enemy team. You can pop a few rounds in the corner of a doorway or spray down a high traffic area pinch point, and someone from the enemy team is bound to trigger the detonation. Telesto is also useful in walling off certain areas. If you're worried about a flank coming, spray a few rounds in that direction to dissuade the enemy player. The same principle can be applied if you're in a bad spot, getting pushed, and you need to make a tactical retreat. As you're booking it out of there, spray a few rounds behind you on the ground to keep the enemy players off of your tail. And then these projectiles will also stick to your teammates, so if you notice a friendly Guardian is consistently diving on the enemy team, that's your guy. Plop some projectiles on him and then let him go do his thing. So Telesto just comes equipped with so much versatility, but it definitely has its problems too, so let's get into the cons. Alright, there are not too many cons to touch on here, but there are a couple of pretty important ones. First off is the inconsistency of the one burst kills. Now there are actually two factors at play here. The first being the fact that this is not a high impact fusion rifle, so it is doing 9 less damage per bolt, meaning you're going to have to land 5 projectiles instead of 4 to outright down a target, as we said earlier. Now that doesn't sound like much on paper or as we're talking about it here, but in game you can definitely feel this. And this is also where that lower range stat comes into play, because as I stated earlier, range does affect overall accuracy and bullet magnetism, so this lowers your chances of landing 5 out of 7 projectiles on a target. In some cases leaving the enemy Guardian standing, whereas a high impact fusion rifle would have dropped them outright. And the only other thing I struggled with here was Telesto's delayed detonation on landed projectiles. For me, when I'm using a fusion rifle, if I land a full spread on an enemy player, I want them to die right now. With Telesto, you do have that short window in time before the explosion detonation procs, giving the enemy player a chance to get in a shot or two on you. This can result in an increased number of kill trades, or if it turns out you did not land 5 projectiles on your target, you might find yourself in a tight spot. Because of this, I made a habit of spraying a burst at a target, diving for cover, and waiting for the results. This made it very hard to continually push forward if forward was the direction I needed to be going, which, as you can imagine, was extremely infuriating. So would I recommend using Telesto in PvP? Absolutely. Even considering the drawbacks, it just can do so many things that no other weapon can do. For a player looking to get really creative with their playstyle in the Crucible, this gun could be a dream come true. And especially after the range hit that most fusion rifles took, Telesto can safely be considered a top tier fusion rifle once again. For me personally though, if I'm seriously playing to win and I'm going to be equipping a fusion rifle, I'm gonna be picking up the Merciless. For my slow, deliberate, and generally passive playstyle, the overall consistency of Merciless trumps the huge amount of utility that Telesto brings with it. But I mean, that's just me. Definitely pick this gun up and give it a try for yourself. So if you've made it to this point in the video and you did enjoy it, please remember to give it a like and consider subscribing to the Ironworker Gaming channel to see more Destiny 2 reviews, guides, and discussions all done by yours truly. If you'd like to catch me live, you can look for Ironworker814 on Twitch. I am making a conscious effort to at least do one stream a week. These are generally going to be weekend evenings starting at 9:30. That is Eastern Standard Time. If you'd like to contact me, the best way to do so is to leave a comment down below. I read and respond to all of my comments because I respect your time and I enjoy interacting with you. And with all that being said, I'd like to thank you for spending a piece of your day checking out my video. You guys are awesome, and I will catch you on the next one.